Hey everyone, welcome to YPN Hot Seat. My name is Corey Whedon, mortgage lender with First Premier Bank, member of the YPN Steering Committee, and co-chair of the YPN Membership Committee. Each week, we bring you one of your fellow YPN members so that you can learn more about other members and tips or tricks on their success in business and in life. Thank you for spending time with us. Today, we have Mason. Mason, I'm super excited to get to host this interview with you today. You sent us some information about all the questions that we usually try to get to, and we personally don't know each other. So just seeing that and knowing that I get to interview you through some of this stuff, super, super excited. But first, why don't you start by telling each of us who you are, where you work, what you do for a living, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I was glad to see that it was you that was going to be interviewing me because I've been wanting to meet you for quite some time. So I'm glad you're here, Corey.
Hey.
So my name is Mason Van Essen. I'm an account executive with HenkinSchultz, and we're a full-service marketing agency here in Sioux Falls. And my role at HenkinSchultz is I'm the go-between between our clients and our internal team here at HenkinSchultz. We're full service, meaning that we can do everything from digital to website building to designing print to we actually have an on-site sign shop where we print large format graphics for all sorts of things like semi-trailers or wall banners, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So and I guess I can talk a little bit about where I'm from.
Yep.
I'm originally from Lake Chetek, Minnesota, which is kind of but near Marshall, Tracy, Minnesota. And I went to college at Augustana here in Sioux Falls, and that's where I met my wife, Andrea, on the first day of school, freshman year.
First day.
Yep.
Just like
first
that.
Day.
Wow.
We didn't not gonna hit it off, exactly on the first day, but
yeah,
we closed the deal eventually. Then at Augustana, I was involved in a lot of different activities. Student government. I was the student body president my senior year before graduating with degrees in business and biology. Before hitting the real world per se in marketing in Sioux Falls. So I've got some experience with agency settings, and I have some experience with in-house settings, and both of those things have really been really helpful for me to learn in my role at HenkinSchultz and really provide value for our clients.
Absolutely. And with your being the account executive on a typical day, I know every day is super different for you guys. On a typical day, though, what is your goal that you're trying to achieve, and what are you pretty much doing in your day-to-day stuff?
Right. My goal is to be responsive to our clients. So if our clients have questions on what's happening, what's an update, what kind of strategy can we have, I'm the one communicating with them via phone, via email, via text. But then I'm also serving as kind of an in-house project manager for our creative team. So I am greasing the wheels to unlock our amazingly talented team here. We have wonderful designers. We have wonderful digital specialists. We have really talented sign shop guys. And it's my job to bring the strategy, bring the communication, and grease the wheels so that way their job is as easy as possible and they can do what they do best.
Yeah. So are you meeting with the individual companies, the people in the companies, and just saying, what do you want? And then coming to them with a game plan of, okay, here's what we have planned visually, marketing wise, all of that stuff. Do you agree? And then you take it to your team?
You bet. And a lot of times I'm involving my team in that initial discovery phase, in trying to figure out what the strategy is, what their business goals are, and how we can actually communicate that the most effective way possible.
What would you say is probably the hardest thing that people come to you hoping they get out of something that you're like, well, that might not be what we're trying to do here? What's that expectation that's just kind of unreasonable that you hear most often?
I think a big one is that they don't necessarily understand the full breadth of marketing. They have almost a limited mindset of what marketing is. They think it's just turning on a TV ad or creating some Facebook ads. Whereas marketing really is a more holistic approach where you're trying to create value for your customer and explain to them in that communication back and forth of what your company does. So that's involved in everything from your logo to your packaging to the signage on your walls inside your office to how your emails sound to how your website plays with them to even how your team communicates with the customer. So we at HenkinSchultz do all sorts of things in communicating your company's mission, your value, your services to your customer. When a lot of times people just think it's purely advertising when marketing is so much more.
Yeah, so it almost sounds like a lot of people are really closed-minded on what marketing really is, and you have to really open that mindset of, it's not just this one thing, a picture, it's all this stuff playing together.
Yeah. But it's also trying to maximize their budget too, because you can't do everything under the sun in order to effectively reach their target. But if you can break it down to really strategize how they're going to reach their customer, that's where you find the magic.
What would you say is probably without giving account names or anything like that, because I'm sure some of that stuff is private, what would you say is probably the most fun thing that you've gotten to do as a project, whether it's with HenkinSchultz or just in your marketing history?
Well, I think that we at HenkinSchultz do a really, really good job of giving back to our community. And I think we've been able to create some really, really dynamic wall graphics for some of our clients, and that's for nonprofits specifically. And I think that's just really great, being able to give back to the community and be able to communicate how they're serving the community at a wider scale. So it's really finding that touching point of how they're serving the community and how you can actually communicate that to a wider audience.
Okay, cool. And are you in the office? Are you guys in the office right now?
Yep, I'm in the office right now.
Okay, I have been in your guys' office before. So cool, so fun. I recommend to anybody who's kind of drawing a blank on marketing or being creative, just go to HenkinSchultz, meet with Mason, and just see the office, and your creative juices are really going to get going. It's a really fun, cool office that you guys have.
It's like a living art museum in here. There's neon, there's things hanging from the ceiling, there's custom art everywhere. We welcome people to come in, and we'll give you a tour. But for sure, stop by the office. It's a pretty cool place to work.
Yeah, it seems like it's a lot of fun. We don't know too much about each other, but in the little description that you sent over to us, you did mention that you have a podcast that you do. So can we jump kind of into that category now? Okay, so you mentioned the name of it. I'll let you give the details of all that, but I did do some digging into it, and you guys have actually been around for a really long time. 2019, so you're well into past or right about at a year and a half, and it seems like it's consistently every Monday. Do you want to kind of touch base on how you actually came to the idea of starting a podcast?
Yeah, for sure. So our podcast is called Scripture First, and it's associated with a seminary here in town called Luther House of Study. And it's a Lutheran podcast where me and two of my friends, we interview the theologians at Luther House of Study about what the lectionary text is coming up on Sunday. So our core audience are pastors who are preparing their sermons and lay people who want to know more about the Bible. And so every week, the text that is going to be preached on Sunday, we quiz the theologians on what is the Greek translations? What is Jesus actually getting at here? Just really basic questions on how can we actually unpack what is being said. How this really originated was back in 2019. I've been a podcast fan for a really, really long time. I subscribe to a couple dozen shows. I love the Bill Simmons podcast for my sports fix, The Wild by Chris Morgan for my ecology fix. You've got Revisionist History, Work Life with Adam Grant, all sorts of these different ones. But I've been a big fan, and it was kind of my dream to be like, I want to host a podcast eventually.
Yeah.
And I was connected to the folks at Luther House of Study, attending Bible studies in college with them, and they were able to explain Scripture. They were able to explain the Bible in a way that I had never heard before, and everything made a lot of sense. And so after college, I just knew that their message should be able to be reached to a wider audience. And we came up with that the hardest part about starting a podcast is coming up with the content. Because if you're planning on doing interviews and you're just doing a general leadership podcast or a marketing podcast, you have to figure out who are you going to interview every week, or if it's every other week or once a month. So actually expanding your network or trying to get guests to come on your show is really difficult. Or if it's just going to be you speaking into the mic, you have to come up with, what is the script? What are you going to talk about? What's new? What hasn't been done in the market already? So for us, we took all of that information and came up with the idea that, one, the lectionary goes on forever. Every single Sunday, there needs to be a sermon preached. So that's content that's already made for us. And then two, we have the guests built in because we have the experts at Luther House of Study who are world-class in understanding what's going on there. So the two biggest challenges were kind of baked into the idea of Scripture First. And so naturally, as we've gone for now over 100 episodes, the team has really created a great chemistry. We have a pretty big podcast. We have up to five people on an episode at any given time. So it's actually pretty dynamic to be able to hear the perspective of somebody like a lay person like me, somebody who's in seminary, like my friend, or an expert who's actually going to be breaking down Scripture, like the professors at Luther House of Study.
Yeah, that's super cool. What would you say is probably the most meaningful thing that you've taken away from hosting a podcast?
I really like the aha moments. Okay. When somebody says something in a way that you've never really heard it before, and it finally clicks, so you make an analogy and you're like, but that's it. We've had so many people give us some feedback saying that the way that we're able to put things, they've never thought about it like that before. And I think that is huge. Yeah.
And Mason, I did jump on and listen to, I think it was 4 or 5 different episodes, and they're actually pretty fun to listen to. Some people think, okay, well, if we're going in and we're going to do some Bible study or listen to something of Bible study on a podcast, is it going to be dry? We've all been in church and have had dry person speaking and a really fun person speaking. You guys are definitely on the fun side. And you really take it into, like you said, a way that maybe you didn't think of it. And it makes you think like, oh, okay, well, it is that simple. It is that easy of a concept versus, okay, what is this person trying to say here? And you guys really have fun with it. And you almost feel, you definitely feel a little better afterwards in your mindset, your thinking, all of that kind of stuff. So kudos to you guys for that.
Yeah, that's been a really intentional effort to make sure that at the end of every episode, we're actually making it upbeat, positive. We're not lecturing you on how to live your life. Yep. We're actually just preaching the good news.
Yep.
And that's what I'm talking about. We have a really good vibe of the people who are on the podcast. We do make it fun. There's plenty of laughs, a lot of jokes told. So it's definitely not the stuffy theology that you think of when you're thinking of, another Bible study type podcast. It is. It's more dynamic than that.
Yeah, that's awesome. What would you say is probably the hardest thing of hosting a podcast that you still have today that you run into? Because you said you kind of wiped out the 2 hardest things of a podcast. What is the hardest thing with your podcast that you run into?
Well, up to this point, we don't have a designated recording space. So every week, or we'll go and clamp on a bunch of microphones to a table, and we'll gather around a table. Sometimes that's in a church basement. Sometimes that's around a dining room table. Sometimes that's at the seminary. But recording in a bunch of different spaces makes post-production really difficult because each space sounds a little bit different. Yeah. But luckily, we just had a wonderful donor give us some funds to actually build out a permanent studio. Wow. So we'll be transitioning Scripture First from an audio-only show to a video show as well.
That'll be super cool and exciting. What would you say for somebody who's always thought, gosh, just like you said one day, I want to do a podcast. I want to be that person doing it. What would you say is biggest advice that you can give somebody that has that mindset?
It's a lot easier than you think it is.
Is it?
All it takes is you watch like 2, 3, 4 how to edit podcasts and GarageBand videos, and you're off to the races. You don't need expensive mic. You don't need an expensive recording studio. You can get started at a very reasonable budget. And the most important part is you and your content. How are you delivering it in a way that is engaging for the audience?
Yeah.
And if you can nail that, you're just off to the races.
Cool. And I keep seeing that Jurassic Park thing behind you. Did you create that logo? You came up with that one yourself, right?
You know, the people here at HenkinSchultz are incredible. They're able to create any sort of logo, and including the most famous movie poster of all time.
Yeah, right. Yep. We're going to keep moving on. I know we are about 15 minutes in, but you mentioned in the email that you sent us that one of the biggest things that you really feel passionate about is just helping people find their why. What makes you passionate about that, and how have you found your why for other people that are trying?
I think that, how do I say this? Everybody really struggles to know what they want to do with their life. That is such a big question, and every graduate in high school is asked, oh, what are you going to do? And you're sitting there 17 years old and you're saying, I'm going to go be a pre-med major at whatever, or I'm going to go work here. And people don't give themselves the leeway they think they have to have it all figured out from the very beginning, and they can't deviate from the plan. When, from my experience, I changed my major 5 times at Augustana. I didn't know what I wanted to do. Yeah. And even getting into the real world, I work in marketing, but that is such a breadth of things that I actually tackle, whether that's leadership, whether that's communication. All of these pieces are on this journey where you're changing paths this entire time. You're going down here and you realize, oh, my strength is here, so you pivot and you go a little bit different direction. And I think people, they are really wanting to identify what they need to do from the get-go and not deviate from that. Whereas I've really wanted to empower people to learn that you can change as you discover more about yourself, discover more about your strengths and what you're best at. So yeah, discovering your why is huge. And I feel like I involuntarily do that to all of my friends. I feel like I'm kind of a career coach by night to all my friends, whether they want it or not. And I just like really help appreciate breaking down how you can plug your own talent, skills, and opportunities into the environment that you're in, whether that's a relationship, whether that's a work project that you're working on. There's a lot of different ways that people can actually utilize their strengths. And a big way that I've been able to do that so far is I've had the privilege of being on a couple nonprofit boards at a young age, and being thrown into leadership positions on these boards. The biggest thing that I've been able to take away is what people need is somebody to sit down and listen, and to just stop trying to speak at every silence of a conversation, and you just sit down and listen, and you can actually start to hear what the real issue is and how you can start to strategize how to solve that. And everybody, regardless of your background, everybody has something to contribute. Yeah. Everybody has their own unique skill set, and a lot of times people just need to be empowered. They need to be called on. They need to be heard in order to actually unleash their own skill set there. People think they need to be in this box, but the box is really way bigger than they anticipate.
Way bigger, and it's always changing, it seems like.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you want to touch base real quick and give a little bit of a plug for the 3 nonprofits that you're on the boards for?
Absolutely. The first nonprofit is it's a nonprofit called Sad Isn't Bad. It's a grief counseling organization designed for families. There's a lot of grief counseling for children. There's a lot of grief counseling for adults, individualized, but for Sad Isn't Bad, we do grief counseling for the entire family all at once. And it's all free. We do about 3 sessions per year where people can sign up if they've lost a loved one, they've experienced a death in the family, a friend, something like that happens. And we break it down where they come in for 4 straight weeks, 1 night a week, and they can experience grief counseling with other adults, with other children, but all in a family setting. So I joined that board in 2018. So it's been almost 3 years there, and I've been the chair for that board for 2 years. And we've done some really amazing work helping people process loss. The second board that I'm on is called Live on Stage. It's an arts organization that brings national talent to Sioux Falls at a reduced price. So we have all of these different concerts at the Washington Pavilion. We bring in musical acts of all different genres at a reduced price. So I got involved with that one to help them with marketing. Right now, their core audience is 65 plus, and they want to start appealing to a little bit younger crowd. So they brought on a 20-something guy to appeal to the younger crowd there. And then my last board that I'm on is at First Lutheran Church, which is the church that I'm a member of. And I head the Stewardship and Giving board, and the whole mission there is trying to expand the premise that stewardship is not just fundraising. It's not just demanding dollars to give to the church. It's actually stewarding your time and your talent in the kind of the same way that everybody has something to offer.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks for sharing those with us. So if anybody is interested in possibly joining one of those, reach out to Mason. He'll help you get started. One of the biggest things that I've learned, and I'm sure, Mason, you've kind of found the same thing, you really don't feel involved until you get involved with a committee, a board, anything like that. Once you start putting yourself on something like that and you have a little bit of responsibility, you just have a lot more fun with it, and you really go so much further than you would by not doing it. Is that kind of what you found too?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's kind of, you need to get yourself involved, or you need to have somebody pull you in.
Yep.
You get that personal invite, and you're off to the races. And that's something that I found really helpful about YPN, is that as a relatively new member, I've only been a member of YPN for a few months, and I've only attended a few events, but that's where I feel everyone has an image in their mind that networking
Yep.
is this big, scary thing that once you go there, everybody is like passing out business cards, and it's kind of this gross networking to self-serving vibe. But once you realize that, like, once you actually get out there, or you're invited to come to an event like this, you realize that networking is really just hanging out with your peers. Yep. And you get to tell what you're doing, what you're interested in, what you do for work, what you do for personal stuff, and you get to hear the stories of other people. And it's really not scary, and it, in fact, is actually a lot of fun.
Yeah, it really is a lot of fun. And, looking back, I don't know if I've even given out a business card at a YPN thing. I'm sure I have to certain people that maybe ask for one specifically, or if, somebody's giving you one and, okay, well, here's one of mine. But that doesn't happen very often. It's really not coming together and just passing business cards. It's not super dry. And I almost, you can agree or disagree with me, let me know, but almost come to a networking event with a selfish reason in mind. You're going to come, you're going to have that reason in mind, and you're going to realize, wow, this is a lot of fun. And then you're going to make 2-3 friends, and then you're going to meet their 2-3 friends. And all of a sudden you have a ton of friends, and you don't even realize you're going to this because of that original reason you were going for. You're going to these because you're having so much fun with friends that you get to see 2, 3, 4 times a month, but only at these events. And you're having drinks with them, you're having coffees with them, you're having lunches with them, you're getting to know more about their families, all of this stuff. And you're like, wait, what was the reason I was coming to these? Because I'm just coming to these now to have fun with friends. Is that kind of? Yeah,
and I think that's the biggest barrier, is if you're going to go out for the morning mingle or off hours, like you as a new member, you're like, I don't know anybody in YPN, so like I don't really want to go and have to just go introduce myself to somebody I don't know. But if you can go attend an event like Reservation for Six, where it's a smaller setting, it's less intimidating. You get to just go have lunch with 5 other people that are in YPN, and
Yep.
You can have conversations that way. Then all of a sudden, if you go to a bigger event, you can say, "Oh yeah, we had the reservations for 6 together. Like we know each other," and that's where you can start the snowball effect of getting to know people. But you just have to get past that barrier of that scary initial reaction.
Yeah, and we do have a question here. I don't know who it's from, so I apologize. It might be from Holly, but asking, just being a new member, what is something that you are most forward? What are you most looking forward to this upcoming year in YPN?
For me, that it's doing just what you were talking about, getting more involved.
Yeah.
For me, I've only attended a few events, so I'm on that cusp of the snowball,
Yeah.
where I've started to make connections, and the barrier has came down for me of YPN being this scary networking thing,
Yep.
to something where I feel like I know a few people and I can feel confident in going to all these different kinds of events, because now I actually can make connections there. So
And
for me, it's actually attending more events.
Yeah, and all you have to do is meet that one person that goes to a lot of these events, and you're going to see them every time you go, and they're going to introduce you to people. And like you said, it's just a snowball effect after that. We could keep talking about this, I'm sure, for a long time, but we do have to get to our hot seat questions. It's a pretty popular spot. So our speed round, we're going to go through 20 questions as quick as you can. No thinking. You ready?
Let's do it.
Okay, so number one, dog or cat?
Dog, absolutely. I have a dog, a baby dog named Nessie. She's a mini sheepadoodle, so dog all the way.
Dog all the way. Netflix or Hulu?
Well, I like Netflix better, but currently the NBA playoffs is on my Hulu Live, so I'm going to go Hulu for
okay, just services. Call or text?
I'm going to go text.
Facebook or Twitter?
Man, I'm going to go Facebook. I'm not a huge Twitter guy.
Okay, ice cream or snow cone?
Oh, ice cream. Who picks snow cone? Ice cream is clearly the winner.
Music or podcast?
Well, podcast.
Yeah, okay. Apple or Android?
Apple all the way.
High tech or low tech?
High tech.
Work hard or play hard?
I'm going to go work hard.
Okay. Hamburger or taco?
Hamburger, Butterburgers at Culver's, clearly.
Butterburger, gotta have that Butterburger. Online shopping or in-store?
Online shopping, you need those options.
Coke or Pepsi?
Coke, duh. Better brandy.
Iced or hot coffee?
Oh, I'm going to go hot. My wife is more the ice kind.
Okay, same here. Save or spend?
Oh, I'm the spender.
TV or book?
I like both, but I'm going to go TV. I love a good drama.
Okay, and city or countryside?
I'm going to go city.
Winter or summer?
Summer.
Beer or wine?
I like beer better than wine.
Beer, okay. Show or movie?
Movie.
And off the clock or morning mingle?
Off the clock, for sure.
Off the clock.
Cocktails all the way.
Cocktails all the way. Mason, we are wrapping up, so thank you so much. You have that 20 questions right there, powered through them. I do just want to do an introduction real quick to our next week's. I just got to pull it up quick, and then we will let you kind of take us out on a high note, let you talk about anything you want to finish up with for the last minute here. But next week, we do have Kyron Wallmeyer, who is a community outreach coordinator at Family Service Inc. And also she is a DJ with Complete Weddings and Events here in Sioux Falls. That's going to be a super fun interview. You're going to have either me or Dakota interviewing her. We're going to get into all that DJ stuff, really see how picking music goes into DJing, and then also everything she does for our community at Family Service Incorporated. So that'll be a really fun one. Mason, anything you want to end on? And how can we find you if somebody's looking to get involved in these different things? If somebody's like, you know what, Mason, I really want to start a podcast. Where can we find you on something like?
You can find it. You can see it on the screen. Best way is reach out to me on Instagram, send me a DM, or connect with me on LinkedIn. I also want to plug that if you have any marketing needs, you can find any full service here at HenkinSchultz. We'd love to have a discovery meeting with you. We'd be happy to meet you at any budget. Additionally, I want to plug my wife's business. She's a writer specializing in feature articles and business storytelling. So if you're in need of any sort of writing services, feel free to look up Andrea Van Essen at andreavanessen.com.
Awesome. And was there a shout out you wanted to do real quick?
Also, shout out to my grandma Gwen. Thanks for watching.
There we go. Mason Van Essen, everybody. If you guys have any questions, please reach out to him. He can absolutely help you get to the next level of whatever you're trying to do. But Mason, thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with us today. And truly, based on everything you have going on, thank you so much for everything you do for our community. You really are a power player, and I'm excited to see, 10 years from now, where have you taken everything that you are involved in and what else you're involved in at that time. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.